The mood around Philadelphia shifted fast over the last few days, and you could feel it almost immediately. What started as genuine optimism about changes on the offensive side of the ball suddenly turned into anxiety when rumors began circulating about the future of the defensive staff. That swing from excitement to concern tells you everything about how much weight this moment carries for the organization, because there was a very real sense that one decision could reshape the entire offseason before it even properly began. For a brief stretch, the focus was on the offense and what comes next after a season that left more questions than answers. New ideas, new voices, and a different approach were finally coming into view, and that alone created a spark. It felt like the Eagles were preparing to turn the page, to rework how this team attacks defenses, and to better support their franchise quarterback. That optimism did not last long, though, because the conversation quickly flipped when word spread that Vic Fangio had seriously been considering retirement. The possibility of losing Fangio hit like a punch to the gut. This was not just about replacing a coach. It was about potentially losing the backbone of the team during one of its most fragile stretches. Last season made it clear that when things went wrong offensively, it was the defense that kept the Eagles competitive. Week after week, it was Fangio's unit that held its ground, bailed the team out in critical moments, and kept wins within reach against some of the strongest opponents on the schedule. Imagining that stability disappearing so late in the offseason was unsettling, to say the least. The timing made everything worse. Losing a defensive coordinator of that caliber so deep into the offseason would have forced the front office into scramble mode, searching for solutions when most of the top options were already gone. On top of that, key defensive assistants had already moved on, which would have made continuity almost impossible. Fangio was not just a coordinator. He was the system, the voice, and the identity of the defense. Taking that away would have meant starting over at the worst possible moment. That is why the latest update brought such a massive sense of relief. After weeks of uncertainty, the understanding now is that Fangio is expected to return and continue leading the defense next season. The fact that retirement was genuinely on the table makes this even more significant, because it shows just how close the Eagles came to losing one of the most important figures in the building. For fans, players, and the front office alike, this was the news they desperately needed. Naturally, the moment those retirement discussions became public, a familiar narrative started to grow. Suddenly, the story was no longer about a veteran coach weighing a personal life decision. Instead, it was framed as proof of dysfunction, internal chaos, and an organization supposedly falling apart behind the scenes. This is where perspective really matters. Were there issues last season? Absolutely. No one who watched this team closely would deny that mistakes were made and that certain situations were handled poorly. But turning every challenge into evidence of total collapse ignores reality. Fangio is in his late 60s and has been coaching football for decades. He has seen everything this league has to offer and has already reached the highest possible achievement. After a demanding season, it is completely reasonable for someone at that stage of life to reflect on whether they want to keep going. That does not automatically mean the environment is toxic or unmanageable. If the same discussion had happened immediately after a championship run, the conversation would have sounded very different, focusing on legacy and choosing the perfect moment to step away. What matters most is that the Eagles were able to convince him to stay, and that decision says a lot. It suggests that there is still belief in the direction of the team and confidence that the pieces can be put together the right way. With Fangio staying in place, the offseason suddenly looks more structured, more intentional, and far less reactive. One major domino has fallen, and now the next steps are starting to come into focus. A big part of that next phase revolves around the defense and the players whose futures are still uncertain. Several important contributors are approaching free agency, and keeping the defensive core intact could have played a role in reassuring Fangio about the team's commitment to winning. The challenge, of course, is balancing performance, age, and financial flexibility. You cannot keep everyone, no matter how much you might want to. The current salary cap situation gives the Eagles some room to maneuver, but not enough to be careless. There is space to bring back one, maybe two key defenders, depending on how the market develops and how aggressive the front office wants to be. Each option comes with trade-offs. Some players bring leadership and experience, but come at a higher cost. Others may be more affordable, but carry questions about consistency or long-term upside. This is where the broader roster strategy starts to matter. Decisions are not made in isolation. Keeping certain veterans might block younger players who are waiting for their opportunity. Letting someone walk could be painful in the short term, but necessary for the future. These are the kinds of choices that define an offseason, especially for a team trying to stay competitive while also planning ahead. All of this connects back to Fangio's return. His defensive scheme values specific traits, discipline, and versatility, which directly impacts who fits and who does not. Players who thrive in his system become more valuable, not just on the field, but in the front office's calculations. That alignment between coaching philosophy and personnel decisions is crucial, and it is something the Eagles can now fully commit to instead of hedging their bets. Another layer to this puzzle involves the long-term cornerstones of the defense. The interior of the defensive line, in particular, represents both a strength and an opportunity. Young, dominant talent at those positions is hard to find, and the Eagles have invested heavily there for a reason. Locking in that core sends a clear message about priorities and could also open up additional flexibility under the salary cap, creating more options elsewhere on the roster. As these conversations continue, the picture becomes clearer. The Eagles are not tearing everything down. They are recalibrating, trying to fix what went wrong without losing what made them dangerous in the first place. Fangio staying put stabilizes the entire process and allows the organization to move forward with a plan instead of reacting to crisis after crisis. The real work is just beginning, and every decision from here on out will build on this moment. With the defensive foundation holding steady, attention naturally shifts toward how the front office can reshape the roster without losing balance. The Eagles have reached a point where every move carries extra weight, because this is no longer a rebuilding team searching for identity. This is a roster that still believes its championship window is open, but one that understands the margin for error is getting thinner. That reality influences how aggressive or conservative the next set of decisions will be. One of the most delicate conversations revolves around which defensive free agents truly fit the long-term vision. Talent alone is not the only factor. Availability, durability, and scheme fit all matter just as much. Some players flash in certain roles, but lose value if the structure around them changes. Others may not always fill the stat sheet, yet they provide consistency and trust within the system. Fangio's presence simplifies this evaluation because the staff already knows exactly what they are looking for. Financially, the Eagles are walking a tightrope. The current cap space gives them breathing room, but not freedom. Bringing back multiple starters would require creativity, and that usually means extensions and restructures elsewhere on the roster. This is where the front office's reputation for long-term planning becomes critical. Rather than short-term fixes, the focus is on moves that keep the core intact while spreading out the financial impact over future seasons. The interior defensive line stands at the center of that strategy. Few teams can match the upside the Eagles have at those positions, and that makes securing that group a priority. When you have young players with the potential to dominate games from the inside, you build around them. It affects everything from pass rush efficiency to how aggressive you can be on the back end. Locking in that core does not just protect the present, it shapes the identity of the defense for years. Extending those cornerstone players could also create immediate cap relief, which then feeds back into the free agent discussion. It becomes a chain reaction. One move unlocks another, and suddenly options that once felt unrealistic come back into play. That flexibility might be the difference between keeping a trusted veteran or watching them walk to another team. It also gives the coaching staff confidence that the front office is aligned with their goals. Beyond the defense, there is still an undercurrent of conversation surrounding the offense, particularly at the skill positions. Tension, speculation, and rumors have dominated headlines, but the reality on the field often looks very different. Chemistry is complex, and frustration after a disappointing season is not the same as a broken relationship. Teams that rush to drastic conclusions often regret it later, especially when elite talent is involved. Trading away proven production rarely solves underlying issues. If anything, it creates new ones. Replacing a top-level wide receiver is never as simple as drafting someone new or signing a cheaper option. Development takes time, and windows close quickly in the NFL. That is why internal resolution is often the smartest path. even if it requires uncomfortable conversations and honest self-evaluation from both sides. The value equation matters here as well. Moving a star player while absorbing significant dead cap only makes sense if the return clearly accelerates the future. Late draft picks and speculative assets rarely meet that standard. Holding on to elite talent while working through internal challenges is usually the better gamble, especially for a team that still believes it can compete at the highest level. Meanwhile, moments away from the intensity of the regular season, small details can shift perception. Seeing players relaxed, smiling, and enjoying the game again reminds everyone that frustration does not define an entire career or locker room. Confidence has always been a defining trait of this team's leader under center, and history suggests that doubt only fuels his motivation. Patterns matter, and his track record speaks for itself. Optimism around the offense also ties into the new voices shaping its direction. Fresh perspective does not guarantee success, but it opens the door to evolution. Endorsements from respected figures around the league carry weight, especially when they come from people who have seen that work ethic and preparation up close. Trust is built over time, and those internal relationships often translate into on-field results. There is also a quiet satisfaction in watching division rivals make choices that raise eyebrows. Every offseason includes moves that look questionable on paper, and fans are quick to notice when those decisions may tilt the competitive balance. Sometimes the best news is simply not making the wrong hire or forcing the wrong fit. Stability, when paired with smart adjustments, can be just as powerful as sweeping change. As all these threads come together, the Eagles find themselves at a crossroads that feels familiar yet different. The pressure to respond to last season's disappointment is real, but panic is not the answer. With key leaders staying in place, young stars ready to take on more responsibility, and a front office known for calculated risk, the path forward is clearer than it was just days ago. The off-season is far from over, and every development from here will add another layer to a story that is still being written. FlyEaglesFly News family, smash subscribe and hit like. Your support keeps the freshest Philadelphia Eagles updates flying in. Drop your take in the comments, and let's talk birds. Whispers around the league suggest that a familiar face could soon be walking the halls in Philadelphia again. Sources close to the situation indicate that the Eagles are quietly evaluating the possibility of bringing DARIUS Slay back home, reigniting a partnership that once defined the identity of their secondary. Nothing is concrete, and no official talks have been acknowledged, but the idea is gaining traction inside and outside the organization. Slay's name still carries weight in Philadelphia. During his previous stint, he was more than just a shutdown corner. He was a vocal leader, a tone setter in the locker room, and a player whose confidence seemed to lift the entire defense. Even after moving on, his connection with the city and the fan base never truly faded. That emotional bond is now fueling speculation that a reunion could make sense for both sides. From the Eagles' perspective, the timing feels intriguing. The team is reportedly looking for experience and reliability on the back end, especially someone who understands the demands of the market and the expectations of a championship-caliber roster. Slay, despite the miles on his career, is still viewed by many evaluators as a player who can contribute immediately, particularly in high-leverage moments where instincts and preparation matter as much as raw speed. Those close to Slay hint that the idea of returning to Philadelphia is appealing. Familiar coaches, a known system, and unfinished business are often cited as motivations. While financial details and roster mechanics remain unclear, the mutual respect between player and franchise could smooth the path if discussions advance. For now, it remains a rumor, the kind that lives in conversations between agents, executives, and insiders. But in a league where reunions are increasingly common, the possibility of DARIUS Slay back in an Eagles uniform is no longer dismissed as nostalgia. It is, quietly, becoming a scenario worth watching. That's a wrap from FlyEaglesFly News. If you want the fastest Eagles updates, subscribe, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Sound off in the comments. Let's talk birds.